One of the biggest problems many of us have with Christianity is the claim that a good, all-knowing and powerful God exists while there's so much suffering in the world. Now, to be clear, I'm not talking about the suffering human beings cause due to our poor decision making out of greed or selfishness, or the accidents, or maybe we're just ignorant, but I'm talking about all the problems that seem to be up to God, such as natural disasters, disease, and even death. Now, no worldview or faith has the complete answer to this. And there's only so much we can cover in a short amount of time. But today, we're going to highlight 6 truths that the Bible presents to us about how there could be a good God in the midst of all this suffering. Just a heads up, this is going to get somewhat philosophical, but let's give it a go. First, God is an empathetic God. He knows what it's like to walk in our shoes. One of the great things about the Christian story is that it tells us God became the man Jesus and engages with suffering so that when we cry out to God, He really gets it. When I say things like, I'm grieving, I'm at loss, He says, yes, my earthly father died. When we cry out to God, I feel rejected and lonely, He goes, my mates abandoned me in my time of need. When we cry out to God, Lord, I'm anxious and afraid, He says, you should have seen me the night before I was crucified. I was anxious, I was afraid. You see, we turn to empathetic people over sympathetic people, and we love to turn to Jesus, who is an empathetic God. He understands what we're going through, and that's nice. Second, we don't have the full picture of suffering. If this God is all-knowing, then the logical conclusion is that God knows much more than us. Much, much more actually. There are many complexities in the world that I don't understand, and I never will. For example, when I was 4 years old, I loved eating apple pie. I'd always ask my dad, can I have apple pie for every meal? And as a responsible and loving adult, Dad told me I could have it for dessert twice a week and that it wasn't very good or healthy for me to have it for every meal. Naturally though, I was angry at Dad, and in a way, he was causing me to suffer. But as we know, Dad tried to explain it to me, but as a 4-year-old, I just didn't have the capacity or maybe even the willingness to understand. Now, just as I wouldn't want a 4-year-old running the meal plans for the week with their limited knowledge, who are we as humans to run the cosmos with our limited knowledge? Third, let's use what we know to inform what we don't know. In my previous example with my dad, even though I didn't understand why he was making me suffer by not letting me eat apple pie for dinner, I still knew he was a good dad. How? Well, because he had done plenty of other things to demonstrate that he was a good dad. He would provide food and shelter, pocket money, take me to the park, help me with my homework, and tuck me in at night. And with God, even though I don't know or understand the suffering He allows or even constructs, He has done plenty of other things to demonstrate that He is a good God. The biblical storyline begins with God's blessing and generosity, and as it moves forward, God gives chances, warnings, He intervenes, takes care of the weak, and He punishes evil. And most of all, He's shown to be a loving God, and He puts His words into action when He comes down as Jesus and dies on the cross in our place. Fourth, the word good is a very loaded term. As we get older, it's amazing how subjective that word is. For example, when I ask my Year 7 maths class if homework is good, very few agree. But when I ask my Year 11 maths class if homework is good, most of them agree. Which group is correct? When it comes to matters to do with God, we see this clearest when Jesus' disciples are watching Jesus dying on the cross. They would have been thinking, this isn't very good. The guy we thought would save us from the Romans and restore Israel is dead. Dang! However, in God's eyes, He is saying, this process is horrible. I'm experiencing it. But this is so good because this is the act that brings me back into relationship with you. In fact, this isn't just a good thing, it's the best thing. And ironically enough, in many countries now, we call this Good Friday. 5. Not all suffering, but some suffering can be helpful. For example, when I'm in the gym, I'm usually in pain, lifting weights, but my muscles grow. And if you look back on the times that you grew the most in life, learned the most in life, or were the proudest of an achievement, it was usually the result of a hard time. Romans 5:3 says, we rejoice in our suffering, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. You see, sometimes suffering can make you more empathetic, kind, wise, resilient, independent, humble, and even confident. Lastly, there's an end to suffering. Revelation 21:4 says he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning or crying or pain, for all former things have passed away. You see, there is hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Suffering is temporary. And Paul writes in Romans 8:18, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." We will never get all the answers, but hopefully you can see in our short time together that Christianity presents a loving God who has the full picture in front of him, that we can cry out to him and he gets it. And for the Christian, we have the hope that he will end all suffering and injustice when we meet him face to face one day. Hi, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, stay tuned for more on the Scruffy Chaplain YouTube channel and at scruffychaplain.com. There you'll find us adding 3 types of videos over time. The first type accurately tells Bible stories the way they were designed to be heard. The second explains the story, and the third hits topics to do with life, God, and theology. So we look forward to journeying with you at Scruffy Chaplain. Let's make sense of the complex.